use a computer. All right, so I want to welcome you all to our Zoom conference on developing research questions. Now, this is an area that is very crucial. As researchers, you know that until you have a good sense of what your research question is, all right, you're not going to be able to do an effective study. You actually might end up in a totally different rabbit hole. And a lot of times what happens is people have this tendency to confuse a research question with a research topic, the research phenomena, the title of your study, and all that. And what can happen is you can get very confused about where you're going with this. Okay. So while it appears to be a very simple question, and usually is a very simple, concise, elegant, short question, unless you're doing quantitative research. And just a disclaimer that I'm actually going to be talking from the standpoint of qualitative research, which is my specialty. So if you're joining essentially based on how do we develop research questions for quant, you probably will be a little disappointed. So I encourage you to either sit in, or if you felt that that was the prime reason for you to join, then you can of course make a choice whether you want to stay or not stay. But this is going to be centered heavily on qualitative research, okay? So before I get into my spiel, I wanted to ask you all, open the floor and ask you this question. What is a research question? So all of you know where the raise hand icon is. You can raise your hand and Namrata can help you, get started and all that. So this is a very important question. What is a research question? Anybody? I mean, we've got a lot of people here, so somebody should be able to take a stab. We've got 41 folks here, so somebody should be able to tell us what a research question is. So what is a research question?
Can I?
Yeah, go, of course. Just because you're the moderator. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that Namrata Chatterjee is going to be moderating our session today. So thank you, Namrata, for offering to do that.
It's my pleasure.
So go ahead with your question.
Right. I think our research question is the basis of our study. It's what we are investigating primarily. And based on the research question, we look for avenues of information from places from where we can get information to answer this question that we have in mind. Okay.
So can you elaborate that a little bit? Just one second. Can you elaborate that a little bit more? So when you say basis of your study, yes, it is the basis of your study. It is not the study per se, but it is the basis of your study, because based on that, a lot of stuff will unfold in your study. So I see a hand has gone up. Misbah.
Yes, Misbah has raised her hand. And Arunish has raised his hand.
Arunish, can we give Misbah a chance?
Yes, please.
Okay, Misbah, go ahead. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you so much. I think I'm fine, alhamdulillah. I think on my point of view, research question is the main thing of your research. Either is a qualitative, either is a quantitative. And research question is based on your research, thesis and research, whatever your thing is. A research question is the whole thing of your research. You answer that question on theory, and as well as you answer that research question is based on your methodology. And in qualitative, you have a main research question, and you in methodology you try to convert in sub questions as well. That is my point of view. I don't know I'm right or not.
No, it's not a question. We are not trying to figure out who's right or wrong. This is not about a right or wrong. It is everything, all answers are good answers. The only questions that are I hate to use the expression dumb questions, are the questions that were never asked. Okay, so never hesitate to ask a question. So that's a really good way of putting it. So let's see what Arunish has to say. What do you think, Namrita?
Yeah, so from my experience of writing, proposals, what I understand about research question is that first we need to write the objectives first. So we need to understand what is the objective. And after that, knowing the objective, we try to frame the research question after that.
Okay.
So the research question should answer our objectives.
Okay, so why is it important to spell out your objectives first before you start to craft and define and think about your research question?
I'll just like to interject and say that Samanyata has also raised her hand. So if you'd like to add something here, Samanyata.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So, sir, what I understood from research questions is when you have a hypothesis and you're trying to prove that hypothesis through the usage of research questions. So once you get the research questions, you know that these are the things that you have to do in your thesis, and these are the sources, primary or secondary, and after that you conduct it. Like, that is what I have understood during my master's. I don't have so much experience.
No, you're right. You're offering a really good explanation for that, but I think you're going more from the standpoint of quantitative positivist science. When you talk about hypotheses and primary and secondary, usually that's in the realm of quantitative research. Okay.
We also have Malvika who raised her hand.
Okay, Malvika.
I'm sorry for interrupting, sir.
No, go ahead.
Yes. So I'll keep this very short. According to me, a research question is the basic question that you set out to answer. And why we need this basic question is because when we are researching, especially qualitative ones, we have so much information coming to us that we often run astray and don't reach the endpoint that we intend to and waste a lot of time. So to keep us in the right track, we need a research question constantly reminding us that this is the question you need to answer at the end of this entire process.
Very nice. Very nice. It's your central theme that is running. It's the central thread that is running through your entire dissertation. All right. Anybody else?
Right. We have Siddhant. We have Siddhant and Priya, and then we'd like to get back to Arunish.
Okay, great. So go ahead.
Siddhant. So hi, Anil. So this is Siddhant, and I think I just had to say exactly what Malavika said. So it's the thing that helps us not go astray. So there are different methodologies that we get to or we think on using during a research study, but just it's like a litmus test for each methodology that we want to apply and see if if that method would really help us in answering that basic question. It's like the guiding light for all the methods. I'm just trying to use different metaphors.
Yes. It is the guiding light, central theme, central thread. Priya also raised her hand, right?
Yes, Priya raised her hand.
Go ahead, Priya.
Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. A research question, according to me, is a central theme. It gives a direction to the research, a beginning to a research, without which we cannot go ahead. And a research question is going to help us give a direction to our research and fulfill some function after which the research will be completed, and it will give answers to our question with what we had started in the beginning. So it will it's an interrogative process after which some questions, some loops, some gap in information would be fulfilled.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, that's I like that. That's the central theme. Yeah.
Can we go back to Arunish? You asked him a question.
Yes. So my question was ki, because I come from this social sector scenario, what happens is we need to do a lot of this impact I would say assessments of the companies, of the corporates, or the CSR which is there. So due to that, they ask us for the objectives, like what do we set out to do. Now why I say that the objectives are important. So once we know the objectives, we can frame the research questions according to those objectives, so that so that from our research we can answer those objectives through our research questions. So is that the correct way? Like I don't know, that is
May I,
how I am being trained to do over these years.
Okay,
Like,
that's
may I
both
add
sides.
something?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Actually, I heard that if you have a research question, don't need the objective. Is that true or not? Because my professor said that if you have a research question, it is not necessary you have an objective, because both are same thing, and both are is the main body of. If you have a research question, don't need an objective. If you have objective, don't need a research question. Is that true?
Okay, so that's a very it's a convoluted thought. So let me try to unpack that. So what are we? So you're saying that your professor is of the opinion that if you have a research question, you don't need a research objective, and if you have a research objective, you don't need a research question. Is that what he said, Misbah?
I
Yes,
think
yes, yes.
yes.
So okay. So first of all, you have to understand the objective and the research question are not interchangeable. They're not the same thing.
Okay.
What do I mean by that?
yes.
So you may have your research objective, overall objective, the overarching objective may be to understand, let us say, understand emotional abuse happening in marriage. I'm just giving you an example. Okay. If your overall objective is to understand emotional abuse, now that's the objective of your research. That because you're going to be spending a lot of years if you're doing a PhD, but even if you're doing a mini study, like we are going to be doing a study, Namrata is going to be helping me as the project manager for a study that we're going to be doing on negative capability, where we are going to be interviewing psychotherapists, psychoanalysts, psychologists. So our objective in that study might be to understand phenomenologically how they make sense of something, right? They meaning the psychologist, right? Make sense of this study. But a research question is a more narrow question. Okay, as you will find out as we proceed into this presentation, you will find that a research question is a concise, narrow, well well thought about question that guides your research methodology, guides your design, and it really becomes your steering mechanism for the entire study. Okay, so you have to be able to separate in your mind what are your overall objectives. So okay, so Misbah, your overall objective, are you in a PhD program right now?
Yes, I am PhD and I'm working on my PhD proposal, and I'm
Okay,
very
so you're working on it. So your overall objective of doing a PhD would be for your advancement of your career, let's say, right? Because you want to teach and they require you to have a PhD before you can become a assistant professor or lecturer. Your overall objective of doing a PhD may be that. But what is your research question for the study? Your research question is a very narrow thing. You may be studying educators, you may be studying something within, you're in Pakistan, correct?
yes, yes, I'm in
You're
Pakistan.
based in
I'm
Pakistan.
studying. Yes,
So
may I?
what is your study? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm studying in augmented reality and virtual reality on real estate. Basically, my domain is digital marketing, and I select immersive technology in real estate, and my research is become to qualitative research. and it is very difficult for me because quantitative research I done it and I did it. Sorry, I did it many times and I published 2 3 papers. But
Okay.
qualitative is quite difficult for me, and I am too confused
Yes.
about that. I'm
Yes. And so
scared
you're
about
in the
that.
right place. You're in the right place. We talk, breathe,
Yes, it's that.
qualitative research. That's all I do. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So if so, your overall objective of doing the PhD may be different, but your research question for the study is a different question, right? It is a narrow question, right? For instance, for my doctoral journey, my research question was, and by the way, you'll never forget, it is so imprinted in your conscience. Once you do a PhD or a study, you'll never forget your research question. You should be able to rattle it off like that. So my research question, after all these years, I can tell you, what was it like for leaders to be in a state of negative capability during periods of conflict and uncertainty in the workplace? See, I rattle it off because it is so branded in me. And that's how you have your research. Your research question has to be very focused. It doesn't have to be broad. An objective can be very broad. A research question is very narrow. Okay. But the art of doing a research question or crafting a research question is to be able to capture a lot in a very few sentences. So again, I'll repeat that. Capture a lot in very few sentences. Sometimes it's just one sentence. My thing was just one sentence, right? What is it like for leaders to be in a state of negative capability during periods of conflict and uncertainty in the workplace? Just one sentence, right? One question. And usually, just please remember, a research question, because it's a question, this is a no-brainer, that it has to be a question, not a statement. I hope everybody sees the difference.
Yes, yes.
Even though it's one sentence, it has to be followed by a question mark because you're asking a question. Correct? Correct. All right. So anybody, if nobody
Right.
wants, go ahead.
No, we have a couple of responses in our chat box. So Nilanjana says that a research question is the stem of the research where we seek to explore the unexplored terrain of a phenomena within limits of certainty and structure. It is through this stem that we shape the way a tree or a research design develops.
Very nice. I like that
It's very
imagery
well
of a
put.
tree. It's
Yeah.
very well put. Thank you for sharing that, Nilanjana.
Varsha is saying, I think we can also look at research questions as the central gateway to addressing the research gaps in a particular domain.
Very nice. Very nice. That's so now we are talking, we're bringing in literature review, the gaps in the literature. Excellent.
And K. Ghosh said, pardon me, Dr. Behel, for not participating in the discussion. I am essentially here for my students who I can see are all ears. Will plunge soon. Regards.
That's fine. That's fine. No compulsion. Okay. If I call upon you and you don't wish to talk, you're welcome to not talk. Right. It's
So
not that
my
that
two
you say,
cents here,
yeah.
I'm sorry, my two cents here would be that I think a study can have multiple objectives, but just one research question.
Exactly right. It can have multiple objectives, but one research question. Your research question is only one. Now, with that said, sometimes my students will come up with two research questions. RQ1, RQ2, they'll sometimes have a RQ3. And I'm saying, okay, so you're asking three research questions. Okay, that's fine. But what is your overarching research question? If you were to combine all three research questions into one overarching research question, what would that question be? Well, so I don't quite understand what you're saying. I want to ask all three. I said, if I said to you to put it all together in one box and create one research question, would it not be possible for you to do that? And they struggle with this. So research question, the reason we are having the Zoom conference or research, if it was so easy, everybody would be doing it. But people are ending up doing it and then going back to the drawing board, and I'll come to that in a second. So I want to move forward because otherwise we'll get stuck on this point. All right. And you've all raised some excellent points. You brought up some great avenues of thinking. And as you will see that we will be covering a lot of that stuff. So let me go with that. Okay. So Let's
Sir,
talk
I think
about.
Arunesh's hand is Arunesh, have you just raised your hand again? I can see the icon. Acha, all right, it's resolved.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. So let's look at this next screen. So I often say, if you want to know what something is, you ought to know what something is not. Okay? Because if you can separate what it is not, then what it is becomes clearer. Okay? So let us look at what a research question is not. It is not your study title. I've had some doctoral students that just started out with me in the coaching scenario that say to me, so this is the topic of my study. And I said, what is your research question? So research question is that, the topic. Okay, so can you help me understand what you mean by that? Well, this is my area of research. Then they'll say, this is my area of research. This is my topic of research. This is my title. Study title is the caption for the study, right? While it does capture part of your objectives, part of the research question, part of all that, it's not that it's totally irrelevant. But your research question is not your study title. It is not the research topic. You may be researching overall a bigger topic, like employee engagement in an organization. So if I say I'm researching employee engagement in an organization, or let's say you're called upon as a consultant to come to an organization and do an action project or action research project, because they want to understand what is the level of employee engagement that's happening within an organization. That is a research topic, but it is not your research question. You'll have to drill down deeper into try to understand what within employee engagement are you trying to, because employee engagement can be a vast area. Are they psychologically engaged? Are they emotionally engaged? Is there compensation playing a role in that? So are they monetarily feeling engaged? Right? Because people, if they're not feeling engaged, and sometimes is the organization not respecting the employees? So are they not feeling respected? That's why they're not feeling engaged. So we want to understand engagement. And in order to understand engagement at its core, we develop a research question on that. So it is not your research phenomena. Now, this gets hairy because a research phenomena is a different thing altogether that we'll be talking about in subsequent slides. So it is not your study title, the title of your study. It is not your research topic, the overall topic. It is not your research phenomena. Then you might wonder, well, what is it then? What is this animal called research question? Right? And this is the struggle a lot of doctoral scholars face. They are not able to craft, and they think, and on the other hand, there are some that say, oh, I have a research question done. They've hardly started a PhD program and they've already figured it all out. They have a research question already ready. I said, wait a second. You've just come into the program and you already have it figured out? Well, it took me 7 years to complete my PhD, 6 or 7 years. And you got it all figured out in 1 month. Wow. Tell me about it. Enlighten me. Man, you can be the beacon. And then as we drill down, they begin to realize that they have not gone through the steps. They have not put thought into that. They fell in love with some research question, somebody else's research question. And they said, oh, that's a great research question. So I'm also going to research that. Right? So just remember that part. Let's go to the next slide. The research focus, as we are getting into the process of developing a research question, the process requires a tremendous amount of focus, because from so much breadth, you're coming into something very narrow, because the research question is a narrow, concise well-crafted, elegant sentence or two, okay, that captures so much with so little, okay? So your research focus has to be there, right? Focus on the major research issue. All right, so now you're saying Dr. Bell is making the waters even more muddied. First, you talk about this is not the research topic, this is not the research title, this is not the research phenomena. Now he's saying what research issue? Can anybody, and please think about this before you answer, because in the interest of giving everybody a chance, please think through what is the research issue? What is the issue in research? And I'm talking about qualitative. So please stay with the qualitative realm, if you don't mind. So what is this research issue? What is really an issue? Anybody? And actually the answer is provided right there.
May I? If in qualitative, I think research issue is what's going on and what happening on that scenario, what the area of you have it, and what's the loops on that area.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm
So what is the research? So issue. So when you're attempting to do research on something, right?
yes,
It's something that is keeping you up at night, something that you talk about incessantly. I'm saying before you enter into a PhD program, the process leading up to entering into a PhD program. Yes, you want to get your PhD title because you want to be called Dr. Misbah Riaz, but that's going to take time.
Yes.
It's not the process of earning the letters. It's the process of transforming into a doctor. Is the process of transformation through experience, through interaction, through attending webinars, through having discourses, disagreements, differences, to have your papers come back with blood-stained ink. What are you writing? You are not up to the mark. Please go back and consider, talk to your husband if you really want to be in this program. You're not cut out. I'm telling you, students are told that. Your writing is terrible. Your analytic thinking is terrible. I mean, I don't say that to people in that way, but I've had students tell me that my professor is saying you're in the wrong program. Don't waste your time.
I face that thing, sir. I face that thing.
So if you faced it, but by the way, if you face that, that doesn't mean they want to kick you out of the program. It is meant to rattle you, to shake you up. Because if you're not being shook up by something, you'll continue to be in that same flow. Chalta hai. Everything, let this thing go on. So why we are spending time discussing this is you will realize because the research question is a very, very important piece. It's a very important artifact of any research study, be it a doctoral program, DBA, or doctorate in education, or just simply doing a study. You have to have a good research question. And you have to have a research question that is not going to be contestable down the road. Because remember, you're in the Academy of Scholars. Other people are going to read this. Your dissertation chair might read it. Your dissertation faculty members will read it. So you have to understand that you've done your thorough. I am trying to bring rigor into something which people seem to think is so easy. It's like a walk in the park. Question hi hai na? So we will make up a question. Kya hai? Okay. So who else wants to take a stab at this? Siddhant has raised his hand.
Yeah, Siddhant.
Yes. So I'm just taking a stab at your research question, Anil. So was the research issue in your research question negative capability? Most like
Okay.
because that's what I see as the central phenomenon. So
Okay, and it is there, and it is, and you're right, Siddhartha. That's a really good question. So, what could be closer than my own research study? So
right.
you're asking me, so what was the major research issue there for me? Is that what your question is?
Yes, yes,
So what was the issue for me? The
yes.
issue for me was I encountered for the very first time this expression negative capability in a
Mhm.
paper written by Robert French at the University of, I believe, one of the UK universities. I forget now which university he was at. University of the West of England. Okay. And he had written a paper called Negative Capability, Containment, and the Dispersal of Emotion. It suddenly, during all my archives and all that, I suddenly looked at this paper and I said, first of all, I was captivated by this phenomenon, negative capability. What the hell is this negative capability? Negative and capability. I always thought of capability as positive, not negative. That piqued my curiosity. So the issue for me became I wanted to understand negative capability more. Because I could have just read the paper, left it there, and moved on. It captivated my mind. And I wanted to understand what is this novelty around negative capability? Who created this word? Was this a contemporary expression or is it something else? So as I started to read the paper, I realized, wow, this was an expression that was coined by the famous English romantic poet John Keats. Now, as someone who has been intrigued and drawn and fascinated by poetry, I got very drawn to the work of Keats. So I started reading up Keats. See how the curiosity spins? Because I'm trying to understand how in the devil, I mean, he's brought up this negative capability. What happened to him that he started thinking about negative capability? In what context was he using? So my curiosity became an issue for me. Okay. Now, as I delved deeper into that, and you asked a very important question, Siddhant, because the research issue it was not like a longitudinal study I was doing or doing a quantitative study where I had to create some grand theory. It was my own personal curiosity. And then as I started to delve into that, and I started to realize, wow, negative capability is not just in poetry because John Keats meant it as an expression when he was thinking about the famous poet Shakespeare. So he used that expression only once in a letter to his brothers in 1817 to describe the Shakespearean capacity to become one with what he was writing about. So if he was writing about Hamlet, he just had this enormous capacity, sensibilities, and emotions to almost go into the body and mind and senses of the subject that he was writing about. And I leave it to you to decide if he was brilliant, because I think that what he wrote and the way he captured that is brilliant. So now this John Keats is a nobody in England at the time. He's just a young poet in his 20s. And he is idealizing, for him, Shakespeare was the role model. So he's idealizing Shakespeare and wants to understand what was it about Shakespeare that made him so good at what he did? How was he able to capture this? So this intrigue, a research issue comes out of curiosity and an intrigue. So let me go a little bit further to answer your question. So from a poetical, from an aesthetic sense, I could understand negative capability, right? because negative capability is the capacity to stay in mysteries, doubts, and uncertainties without the irritable reaching after fact and reason. So it's like staying at the edge of knowing and not knowing something. Staying at the edge of certitude and incertitude. Now, I said, it's not just only in poetry and aesthetics, it's also in leadership, right? Contemporary leaders do not have all the luxury of the information today. I mean, they are always teetering at the edge of knowing and not knowing. Sometimes everything is not clear. Then in therapy, in counseling, in psychology, when you're seeing clients are coming to you with very limited information. And if you as a therapist or you as a consultant are so eager to develop explanations and diagnosis and all that without even listening to what the other person is saying, you're leading them down the wrong path because your interventions are not going to be there. So now, this is the process that was occurring in my mind. So my research issue became, how can negative capability, which was an aesthetic concept from poetry, be extrapolated to the study of leadership? You see where I'm going with that? So my research issue became this.
Right.
It was born out of my curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And then out of that was born the central phenomena for me. What is the central phenomena? Negative capabilities. It's a no-brainer, right?
Right.
What is it like for leaders to be in a state of negative capability at times of conflict or whatever, right, in the workplace? So through this, but I had to go through this entire process of reading up the literature, reviewing that, talking to people, doing searches. And that is what I'm going to come up to in the next slide when we talk about that. Is just, you just don't develop a research question out of thin air. A lot of work goes into cultivating that art of developing that. Yeah. So thank you for asking that question. It's so passionate and dear to my heart that I had to share that in a little more elaboration. But who else wants to go with this? Because this is a very important issue.
Arunish wanted to.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to go ahead.
Go ahead. Who's this?
This is Arunish.
Arunish. Oh, no, there's somebody else. Leslie. Leslie, right?
Yeah, Laszlo Petrovich Vajuk.
Oh, Laszlo. Oh, hi.
Bless you so much.
Lacey, my good friend Lacey. By the way, Lacey is you're in Bulgaria, right?
Yeah, I'm in Budapest. Yeah, you know, really,
Hungary.
Yeah, Hungary. Really appreciate this very much because
thank you so much. You're just a great man. You've been my mentor. You've been somebody I've looked up to for God knows how many years.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you could join us. Okay.
I turn to you because I've got my teeth in a very, very broad issue.
Okay.
And as you're talking, I'm trying to hook it into some focus.
Okay.
I have a title.
Mm-hmm.
The title is East Meets West, or
mm-hmm.
when East meets West.
Right.
The topic is the very troubled democratization that started in 1989 when the Berlin Wall and the Soviet Empire fell.
Right.
The research phenomenon seems to be the essential needs of democratization. And the phenomenon itself is the return of the repressed.
Oh.
In a nutshell,
right.
we in Eastern Europe from Poland all the way down, were not allowed at the critical time of the changes to look at our past. That is, I call it the graveyard of the tyrant. That is, all democracies are formed on a graveyard that you have to visit. I use it as a metaphor naturally, but you have to look back, and if there were crimes against humanity, or there are recorded, proven criminality, at least these people have to be held accountable.
Correct.
In some measure. It doesn't mean that they have to be all shot or whatever, but the populace needs to see that, Janos talking to Kati. Geez, Kati, things have changed here. Look at that. He did that and that, and look, he's held accountable. Well, what's happening to him, Janos? He can't be in public office for 5 years. You see, critical things happen then because Kati and Janos start seeing, yeah, this is worth it. This is what democracy is up. It's different, Kati, isn't it? It's somehow better. It's better. And then certain other things happen.
Right.
Because, and this is where it's so broad that I really would appreciate focus. That is, because this was denied throughout Eastern Europe, we do not know who our neighbor is. Was he a spy in Romania? 30% of the population were spies.
Wow.
And then other things happen. Trust is not built. Trust is, who can we trust? If you can't trust your neighbor, that is the surveillance system was through people, and it was primitive. We say that we have now surveillance societies in various places like China. You have it in many places, but back then it was through people largely, and the issue of trust. Let me just stay with that for a bit. There would be microphones put into the nuptial pillow. You got married that day, and your nuptial night would be overheard. Please understand it. Please understand the depth of violation that happened.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Now, so let me go on. We don't know the neighbor. You might not even know your family members. None of this was rectified. And I call these issues the issues of trust, the issues of accountability, the issues of transparency, the issues of accountability as the flesh and blood of democracy.
Wow.
You understand. But what was allowed, and you will hear this very clearly if you know India, you will hear this very clearly. East meets West.
Yes.
The skeletal structure of democracy was allowed.
Right.
That is not the human rights, not the ability to grow up trusting and believing, but the skeletal structures. What do I mean by this? Just capitalism and the free market. That is, privatization was introduced to a population that had never written a resume, had never conceived of unemployment, had, in fact, unemployment was illegal.
Right. So listening to Dr. Lacey's account, I mean, this is incredible, because this was like a lesson in the ancient history that it occurred. And so when you're looking at that, you're looking at a research issue. So in a short talk right now, Dr. Lacey has introduced us to many issues. So if you were writing about that, right, you would have a lot of issues. Then from the issue emerges a research phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Because issue may be something very big, Lacey, as you know. And a research phenomenon is a narrower expression of what we are doing, right? So
I ask your help not to drown in this. That's why I asked the group's help to help me focus this.
Yes.
Because the entire region is misunderstood.
Yeah.
Now, please, now this is where I make the connection to India.
Yes.
That is by, okay, so what you have is that the flesh and blood of democracy are not nurtured, they're denied. But you can have the mechanics. Privatization, factories are suddenly privatized.
Yeah.
Masses of people become unemployed who never in their lives imagined that this would happen.
Correct.
And there were no safety nets. Right. Now this is where I get back to return of the repressed.
Yeah. So what we can do, Lacey, is we could take this offline a little bit more, because I've got these doctoral students here that want to understand a bit more about my presentation a little bit. So, but I appreciate you are talking about this issue. Let's talk about this offline. I really would be interested in taking this further with you. Okay.
Bless you. I really appreciate that.
No, certainly.
It's big and it's real but it's confusing.
Yes,
and I see your skill in focus. So bless you.
Thank you. Bless your heart for saying that. You and I go back many, many years, and
that's right.
I'm so delighted that you took some time out of your schedule to talk to us. I appreciate that. So
you're saying we should be in touch.
Yeah, we definitely should be in touch about this.
I will send you some material then. Bless you. Take care.
That'd be great. So thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Okay. So let's go about this. So what is remember, so one of the things that I've found a really nice template to narrow down and to become more focused about what your research question is, or when you're developing a research question, okay, you have to be able to create what is known as a purpose statement. What is the purpose of this research that you're doing? Is it just to earn the letters after your name? All right. Is it to add to the extant body of knowledge? Is it to fill gaps in the literature? Right. Now, in order to do that, you have to first visit the literature. You cannot just say there's a gap in the literature. Well, how did you know? You have to be able to study that literature. You have to be able to go through those pieces in order to understand. So this is a basic template. The purpose of this study, when you're developing a purpose statement, and purpose statement is a really important purpose statement, an important document to develop, and you will see why in a second. So let's say we were to fill in the blanks. The purpose of this study will be to understand what? Understand, explore, develop, discover, whatever you want to do in your research. Whatever your phenomena is, the central phenomena. You can see my cursor here, right? So the purpose of this study will be to fill in the blanks, understand, explore, develop, discover the phenomena of what? What is your phenomena? When they say central phenomena, we are talking about the research phenomena. What are you researching? Okay. For what participants? So where are your participants located? Because you've got to have research study participants out there that you're going to be interviewing, right? Whether it's through a focus group, whether it's through questionnaires, or whether it's through in-depth semi-structured interviews, you have to have participants for a research. And it has to be a purposive sample, people who can authoritatively talk about your study phenomena. You can't just pick somebody off the street and say, hey, become part of my study. These people have to be knowledgeable about your work, such as the individual, group, of organization at what is your research site. Are you going to be researching there? Are you going to be researching by Zoom? Are you going to be researching face-to-face? Are you going to be recording it? Right? Or are you just going to be taking copious notes there? So at the stage of the research and again, the central phenomena being studied comes up. Now, a crucial point here, the central phenomena has to be defined. You can't just say, I'm intrigued by this. I'm intrigued by this research phenomena. But you don't even know what the research phenomena is. You've not read up on that. You've not had discourses. You've not had a dialogue. And you're saying, I'm interested in doing this research on this, but you cannot define it. Like, for instance, when I started to look at negative capability, a Keatsian construct, I had to have some sort of a definition to hang my hat on, right? What is negative capability? So for me, negative capability was, and I shared that with you, the capacity to be in mysteries, doubts, and uncertainty without the irritable reaching up to factory zero. Now, let's say you were doing research on employee engagement. So you have to be able to define what you mean by employee engagement. Everybody's definition of a phenomena is different. Unless it is a canonical concept, such as negative capability, which I did not coin, it was coined by the famous English romantic poet John Keats. So there will be certain phenomena that you would have to go with the original definition, right, of whoever created that, right? You cannot go out there reinventing the wheel, but you can have certainly interpretations, which you should, your own take on the phenomena. So the phenomena has to be defined by you before you can even go and create a research question. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Let's look at some purpose.
So I'm sorry, when we were talking about the research focus, there were a couple of people who wanted to add to that.
Sure, let me go back to that.
And Arhama. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so on the research on this purpose statement or the previous one?
The previous one, when we were talking about research
nothing
focus.
To add anymore. Nothing to add
All
anymore.
right.
After that,
Nothing to add. Okay,
thing
so Arama, you wanted to add something there? Where is Arama?
I think she might be having some problem with the mic. Also, there is something that, just a second, I can't find that message. So Naveen says, sir, from what you have explained, can we state that a research issue is a Durkheimian, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, that a research issue is a Durkheimian social fact waiting to be unpacked or exposed?
Maybe. Why not? It doesn't have to be Durkheimian social fact. It could be from aesthetics, like for me. It could be from history. It could be from politics. It could be from interpersonal relationships. It could be whatever, right? So one thing I would encourage folks to do is to not put a theoretical spin on something and make it even more convoluted, make it complex. The idea of doing this to make it simpler. So when you're looking at phenomena, looking at research, first strip it down without using theoretical frameworks, because we tend to all, when we are doing PhDs or writing studies, we tend to get a little bombastic about it. Right? We try to bring it vernacular into it, right? Jargon into it. to the extent possible, hey, there will be plenty of opportunity in your research study to bring in theoretical frameworks and citations. But when you're looking at this, strip it down through a process of reduction. If you don't understand what your phenomena is at the core, at the essence, what are you doing the research for? For whom are you doing it? At the end of the day, you're doing the research for yourself, really. Because this is what your curiosity is. This is where your mind is going. This is where you want to spend the next 3 or 4, 5 years of your life doing. Yes, you're doing it for the academy. Yes, you're doing it to earn the letters after your name. But at the end of the day, you're doing it for yourself. Just don't forget that. Okay? So if Arama is not there, let me just move to the next slide. So let's look at purpose statement examples. Now, in the previous one, again, this is the template, right? The purpose of this study will be to blank, understand, explore, develop, discover the central phenomena, blank, right? For what participants, at which research site, okay? Now, translate that into actual examples. So let us look at the very first one. The purpose of this study is to understand the life experiences or lived experiences of female math majors in an effort to understand why they chose to major in math. Okay, this is a purpose statement, right? Is this the research question? Anybody? Is this the research question? Yes or no? There are no wrong answers. Please take a stab.
It might be a convert into research question.
Okay. So if you massage this first statement, yes, you may be able to arrive at it, but this is not your research question. It is the overall overarching purpose.
Oh, but sir, we tried to convert that thing now, how to understand the life experience of female
No,
math
you
majors.
can, and that I agreed with you. I said we can certainly do that. We can distill a research question from this, but this in itself, this meaning this first line where my cursor is, this is not your research question.
Okay.
It's your research objective.
Yeah. It
Because
is a research
because it is why? Because it is too broad. Research questions have to be narrow.
narrow down.
Okay. So the purpose of this study is to understand the lived experiences of female math majors in an effort to understand why they chose to major in math. Central phenomena. So what is your research phenomena? Reasons females choose to major in math, right? Very clear. So you're drawing from this main stem your central phenomena. Reasons female chose to major in math. Participants, female math majors. Obviously, if you're going to research this, you're going to talk to major math participants, correct? Right? They'll be the ones you will be interviewing, because who can throw light on this? People who are experiencing that, people who are going through that, correct? Unit of analysis, individual female math majors, right? You're not, now, unless you were doing a focus group, unless you were doing through questionnaires, but if you were doing face-to-face interviews or even Zoom interviews, the unit of analysis is individual female math majors. What is the location? Pleasantville University. So now you're doing this study for whom? Who's the sponsor of this study? Pleasantville University, because Pleasantville University hired you to do this research. Let's look at another one. Oh, I'm sorry. The second one is purpose of this study is to better understand widowed or divorced senior citizens' perceptions of online relationship websites. A lot of websites now are online, marital websites, matrimony.com, relationships, dating, whatever, right? So the purpose of this study is to better understand widowed or divorced senior citizens' perceptions of online relationships. Okay. What is the central phenomenon? Perceptions of online relationships websites. Very clear, right? So no brainer. Participants, who are your participants? Widowed or divorced senior citizens, correct? Who are the people who will be able to talk about it? Widowed or senior citizens, correct? Unit of analysis, individual widowed or divorced senior citizens. Location. This is implied, but it would be the location where the data were collected. What is the site that we say in research, or location as we call it? It is where the research is being conducted, correct? Right? So whether you might do it, like I said, in an online setting, as in Zoom, like we are talking, in a focus group, through surveys, whatever the case may be. So guys, all this while that we are talking, we are doing what? We are trying to develop a research question. We are not there yet. Everybody clear on that?
Can we say the purpose is the objective, the research objective? Can we say that?
Of course, of course.
And the central phenomenon would help us to, frame the research question, right?
Frame the research. Am I right? Exact. Very nicely put. I like that. So the objective, purpose, whatever, it's just words, right? Mm-hmm. Why are you doing this study? Correct? Okay. So let's go to the next one. Defining and describing research questions. Now we are getting into the meat of this. Step one. What is already known about the problem? What do I mean by this? So if you have a problem, and again, let me go back to the previous one, or a purpose or an issue, the purpose of the study is to understand the lived experiences of female math majors in an effort to understand why they chose to major in math. What is already known about that issue? How would you find out? Would you just talk to people? Yeah, okay, you might. But where is the source? Where do researchers go to find out what is already known about that problem, or what has already been written about that problem, or what is already been cited? Where do you go? Guys, anybody?
Hello, sir. This is Arama.
What is the source? Who's Arama?
Literature review.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. I am so sorry, sir. I am so sorry, sir. I couldn't respond to you earlier because my Wi-Fi is hell-bent on giving me problems today. So I was trying to log in both from phone and laptop, seeing whichever works.
No, I'm already honored that you tried to log in from both sources and finally you got through. Right? Try, and you finally get there. Go ahead,
yes,
Arama.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So talking about what you just said right now, I think, sir, what is already known about the problem, we in this context, we go back to the literature review, like what already exists in the literature regarding this research phenomena. So we try to look for we try to gather information about what already has been, what research already has been conducted on this topic, whichever topic we are concerned about. So I don't know if I'm correct or not. Just correct me if I'm wrong, sir.
The thing is, what you just said, and you cannot be more right. You cannot be more correct, because this is exactly where I was going with it. So thank you for sharing that. Did everybody hear what Arama said? Because what was my question? What is already known about the problem? How do you find that out? You go back to the literature. Who are the people that have written about it, right? Is that what you're saying? Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So
Go ahead.
Have a question. Actually, I'm studying in immersive technology in real estate. When I saw the literature, many countries has converted in immersive technology in real estate. Right now, in my country, real estate is now is industry declared by government. But when I went to the real estate companies, and I asked about the immersive technology. They are doing, but they said that consumer behavior is not convert in behavior. Immersive technology, their behavior is like traditional things, like they see the models, the building over there, the spaces there, models. If you know that the real estate, the models
That's
things
okay.
start.
So if you're going to a source and you're not able to find data for your or information for your study, then you go to other sources which are allied, right? Which use immersive technology. So if you do a overall Google search or Google Scholar search on immersive technologies, or you go into Emerald, or you go into Taylor and Francis, I'm sure, or even in your own
Oh,
university
sorry,
website.
sorry, I interrupt you. I'm asking, the gap is too much high in my, according to my country. Actually, we are very beginning in the immersive technology. When I saw the literature, they are very up level in immersive technology.
Ah, okay,
We are
okay, okay,
not.
okay. So I misunderstood you. So what you're saying is that in your country it's at a very nascent stage. It is very infant
That,
stage.
yes, yes.
That's
Initiative.
that's good. That's good because if you relate your study in the context of your own country, that is amazing because you can now fill in a gap. So there's a huge gap there, right? In the
Yes,
literature.
actually, I'm going to like that. I interviewed the both parties. I interviewed in marketing strategy on real estate, and I also focus group on consumer behavior. I
Okay.
interviewed which stage of your company in immersive technology, and
Mhm.
how to develop immersive technology about the customers and potential customer is go through the immersive technology or not, like that things. I asked the director
Okay.
marketing first, and
Okay.
focus
Okay.
group. Yes, and I asked, and I will maintain a focus group, and the two types of focus group. One is traditional marketing, the things, the model, and one is immersive technologies like 360 videos and 360 pictures, and ask
Good.
both
So you
people.
are basically what Misbah you're saying is you're collecting information for your study,
Exactly.
right? Because if the information is, if there's such a gap, if your country is at a very nascent stage, infant stage in that, you still need to understand what is happening worldwide in that as far as
Exactly.
immersive technologies. It's just,
But
it's
my
not that.
professor,
Hmm?
sorry, let me complete myself. But my professor said it is like a project, not a PhD thesis. That's why I'm too much confused about my thesis. Okay, why is not a look like a
Let us,
PhD?
Misbah, what we can do is, in just in the interest of the time here for
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
So
sure, sure.
yeah,
So sorry.
you and I can take this off channel, okay,
Okay, okay,
backline,
okay.
right?
Okay.
You
Thank you
can
so
email
much
me. You
for
have my
that.
email address, and I'll
Yes.
be able to help you understand that a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit more. Okay?
I will give you a hard time, inshallah,
Oh, don't worry,
in the
don't worry.
future.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No problem.
Okay, so
You're very
Nilanjana
welcome.
has
Thank
something.
you. Okay. Go ahead,
Nilanjana
Nilanjana.
has something to add here.
Go ahead.
She has typed it in the chat box. Is answering the question what is already known about the problem. In answering the question that is already known about the problem, we go through literature available. However, sir, a phenomenon is studied through multidisciplinary perspectives, which adds to the breadth. How do I engage myself with a particular perspective or theory? Or do I go completely with my inquisitiveness?
I were to say this, start with your inquisitiveness. There is no substitute for academic curiosity. That's why you come into a PhD program. You don't come into the PhD program to rest on the shoulders of philosophical giants like Heidegger and all of that you'll be doing, believe me. You'll be reading the work, but your work has to have its own shoulders, right? It has to have its own foundation. Where does that foundation come? It comes from a basic curiosity. So there is no substitute for basic curiosity. Now, as you go through that curiosity, you read up more, you will automatically very naturally gravitate to the work of other authors, other theorists, and it'll help you refine your question. But when you're starting the process of writing a basic question, there is no substitute for academic curiosity, the innocence there, right? No substitute for that. That's where people start to get into a tangle because they're thinking that, oh my, is my research question sophisticated enough? And I ask them, what do you mean by sophisticated enough? Well, I'm not cited. Well, first of all, wait a second, stop. You don't have to cite authors in your research question. Your research question is just a research question. It's a question you're asking that's guiding your research. So let me move on to the next one. What specific questions do I want to answer? Now, having studied the literature, as Arama said, having gone through your process of curiosity, what are the specific questions do you want to answer? What question do you want to answer? If you're into emotional abuse, which is such a big topic, right? Or employee engagement, or in my case, leadership, okay, so vast. But within that whole vast realm, what is my focus? Where am I going with this? What questions am I being led to answer? Where is my curiosity leading me? Or are you just doing research because you're fascinated with John Keats' negative capability, so okay, I'll spend next 5 years of my life just doing that. No. Something about that was intriguing you, right? Like, for instance, when I started to look at negative, I bring my own experience because it's so relevant for me, and hopefully it'll give you a little more insight into your own situation. So when you're looking at a research, developing a research question, I was looking at negative capability. So I looked at negative capability from the standpoint of poetry, aesthetics, which John Keats had written about. He had not written about leadership. He had not talked about dialectical tension there. He had not talked about its relationship with mindfulness and Buddhism. He had not talked about organizational psychodynamics, this animal. All of that literature I pulled into the study of negative capability. I talked about dialectical tension. I talked about dialogism. I talked about discourse. I talked about anekantavada, which is the Jainism doctrine of non-absolutism. So folks, you see that you bring in literature from many sources to be able to create this question. So, or your question can lead you into all those sources, but all those sources also help you refine your question. So I don't know if I answered Nilanjalan's question. I'm not suggesting that you not go into the theoretical depths, but I'm suggesting that as you start, be like a child who learns to first crawl, then get up, take some support and get up and walk. Don't just jump into being an adult, because you'll miss on some of the nuances of research, which are very critical. Okay. So step 3, what research is called for in the problem area? So now you've identified a problem area, right? Okay. You've gone into the literature to figure out what literature is already available on that problem area. What specific questions do I want to answer? Not broadly, but specifically. Once you have that in your mind, what research is called for in that area? Not just, oh, you decide that this is a wonderful topic, I'm going to do the research and I'm already going to decide to do what methodology, etc. No, don't jump to the methodology right now. Just what research is called for in the area. There may be a gap in the literature that calls for action research, that calls for other forms of research there that have not been conducted so far. And how are you going to know that? You're only going to be able to know that if you've studied the work of other people. Correct. Now, For instance, I was doing phenomenological research. Why? Because I noticed that, first of all, there was not a single research study at a doctoral level done on negative capability. There were articles, yes, written, monographs written on that, but not a dissertation study, a doctoral dissertation study. So I took it upon myself as a challenge to do that, because I realized I would be contributing something novel to that. And I went into phenomenological research, because a lot of the work of Keats is ontological. The nature of being is of existentialism. So I was naturally drawn to phenomenology. Now, when I went into phenomenology, I started looking at the work of Husserl and Heidegger and Alfred Schutz and Derrida, and the list goes on. And then Jean-Paul Sartre, okay, on existential phenomenology, and the work of Simone de Beauvoir. So see how your curiosity leads you into many different areas. And if you're not traveled that realm, your research question is worthless, believe me. It is no good, because then you can write a research, anybody can develop a research question, but if somebody were to ask you, well, what was the process of developing your research question? Can you, Namrata, tell me what process you followed to develop the research question? And you say, oh no, I just fell in love with the research question, and I said, that's fine. That is not enough for doctoral studies. They will drill you. Because if they don't catch you there, they will catch you at the time when your entire dissertation is done, when you're defending your thesis. You better have answers. Because if I was on the panel, I would say, okay, you keep asking about this research question. How did you develop the research question? Did you just pluck it out of thin air? How did you craft it? See where I'm going with this? It's a fairly intricate process. It involves a lot. But a simple thing like that, it involves a lot of exercise. Okay, so what research is called for in the area, we talk about that. Then we go into, okay, so I have to figure out, okay, right. Characteristics of, I hope I've gone to the correct slide. Okay, yes. Characteristics of a good research question. What are they? Must be derived from the purpose statement. Now you're seeing how it is connecting? I talked about the purpose statement. This is a whole process of developing. It is derived from the purpose statement. I showed you 2 examples how to derive that. Should be clear, concise, and focused, not running it in one whole paragraph. That is not your research question. If you're not able to write your research question in one short sentence, or maybe 2, you're going down the wrong path. You're writing a mini dissertation when you should be writing just a research question. Should intrigue the researcher. Why is that important? Why is it important? If it doesn't intrigue you as a researcher.
I think for motivation, just to go through with the research and commit to it.
Yeah, yes, it's a lot of work involved in doctoral studies. And even to write a research study, it's a lot of work involved. So if you're not intrigued, if you're not passionate about, if you don't have a fire in your belly, and if you're not really into this work, you are not going to do it to the end. It has to keep you awake at night. You have to be losing some sleep over it. Why? Because it's important to you, right? It has to be a manageable scope. Now, what do I mean by that? The scope of the research should be manageable. If it is unmanageable, like I want to count the number of clouds in the sky, is that a manageable reach? How are you going to be able to do that? How are you going to collect the data? Are you going to go into a rocket ship? So it has to be manageable scope. By also manageable scope means, are you capacitated? Do you have the potential? Do you have the resources to be able to do this study? Now we are launching 2 or 3 studies, and I have to have all the resources. I have to have my intellectual resources. I have to have my project management resources. I have to have people like Namrata to help me out. Because I can't do it all myself. I have to have co-researchers. I have to train the co-researchers, right? I have to have the financial resources to be able to pay these people, right? So it has to be a manageable scope. Data can be collected and analyzed. You should have data. First of all, you should be able to collect data. From whom? From participants or focus groups or interviews or questionnaires, or go back into the literature and collect data if you're doing a different kind of study. Theoretical and practical significance. Please know this is very, very important. It has to have pragmatism, but it also has to have a theoretical underpinning. You are doing research, right? Even when you're doing phenomenological research, where the objective of the research is not theoretical, is not to produce grand theories, there still is a framework running underground there. But you're doing it for, there is significance of doing the research. You're creating something for the body of knowledge. You're adding to the literature. People will be citing your work. Okay. So theoretical and practical significance are very, very important. And lastly here, it must be ethical. Oh, I'm going to do research and I'm going to go through, I'm going to bribe people to come on board as participants. I'm going to concoct the whole study. I'm going to make up the whole design and all sorts of corrupt ways I'm going to go about that. Cheating. I'll have somebody, oh, worst case scenario, I'm doing my research. I'll pay somebody 10 lakhs, right, to do the entire research for me. Why should I do all the work? Let somebody else do the work. I've got money. I'll pay somebody to 10 lakhs to do that. They'll gladly write the papers. They'll do all of that stuff for you. And at the end of it, what worth is that piece of paper that you get after that? Any worth? So your work has to be ethical, rigorous, ethical, no plagiarism, zero. I have zero tolerance, folks, for plagiarism. When I see anybody doing plagiarism, I tell them to go back to the drawing board and please make those corrections. Say it in your own words. Hey, cite the author. If you're directly citing the author, put the page number, year, author's name, right, in brackets. If you're paraphrasing, even then you have to cite the author in the references and also put the under the text. Do it by all means. Go ahead. Nothing wrong. But don't say these are words. Like, for instance, what is an example of citing the author? This slide, or not this slide, I made up the slide, but I got this content from where? Look down at the bottom. Correct? Copyright. I'm not saying this is my work. Copyright Terrell SR 2016, writing a proposal for your dissertation, New York Guilford Press. These authors are not saying don't ever cite us, don't ever reproduce our work. What they are saying is, show us the academic courtesy, don't plagiarize, provide the attribution, provide the author citation, which is what I've done there. Correct? So this is what is very, very critical. If you feel tempted using somebody's words, believe me, somebody will trap you. Write it in your own words, in simple language. Doesn't matter. Your dissertation doesn't have to be like an encyclopedia. It has to be written in your own language, in your own style, in your own vernacular, in your own interpretation and sense making, how you are making sense of something. Correct? Everybody on that page, right?
Right. So a couple of people raised their hands.
Yes.
Arunesh and Priya.
So
okay,
I had a question on the previous slide. I'm not able to understand the step number 3. What research is called for in the problem area?
Okay. So what research is called for in the research? That's a good question. So let us say that you're going through all this literature and all that, and you're finding that on your research phenomena, on the topic that you're thinking about, there's already so much research done. For instance, employee engagement. Like, I'm just taking an example because you work for corporations and you do all this kind of. So employee engagement. If you go into employee engagement literature, there's plenty of literature out there on employee engagement.
Yes, right.
Now you might say, okay, because there's already so much literature on employee engagement, you have a choice to make whether you want to go for another topic or you want to go for another context. I'll give you an example. Because of the pandemic today, a lot of learning, teaching such as like this is happening online, correct? Right?
Correct.
Every university is doing online. Harvard, Stanford, all of these large universities in the US also are doing online. So you might say, what is it like to be an engaged learner or an engaged employee in a virtual organization? Now, what have I done? My concept, right? My central theme, my central phenomena is still employee engagement. But now I want to research employee engagement in the context of virtuality, not in bricks and mortar companies.
Yes.
The moment
Context
I do
has
that,
changed.
the context changes, and now you have to bring in what? In your literature review, you will also need to study literature on virtuality. In order to understand the essence of your phenomena, employee engagement in the context of virtuality, would you not have to study virtuality also?
Yes, yes.
You would have to. So now your study becomes richer, more meaningful. Does that answer your question, Arunesh?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay,
Got
good.
it.
Did anybody else?
Priya?
Priya had a question. Priya, go ahead.
Yes, sir, I have a question regarding the manageable scope.
Yes.
Sir, in an exploratory study, when we are going to explore some concept in some different context, then how do we define when it is of exploratory nature? How do we define that this would be our scope or define some kind of boundaries?
Well, again, every person, every researcher's definition of scope is different. Definition of management is different. When we broadly say managing the scope, okay, we are looking at from an individual standpoint. Do you know the limitations of your study? Like, for instance, if you're going to be doing a study with, I'm just taking an example. What example should I take? Let's take the example of, okay, so if you want to study the major leaders, okay, i.e. the prime ministers and presidents of the five largest countries, let's say. Now, that sounds like a great idea to do, because you want to understand what is it that they do on a day-to-day basis that makes them so successful, make them leaders that are followed. But you may not be able to reach them for interviews. I.e., you may not be able to interview them. So what do? So it's outside the scope of your study.
Okay.
Right. And you can take a number of different examples. It's your individual. So if you're able to manage the scope of the study, manage the boundaries of your study, manage what it is that is possible for you and what is not possible for you to do, and be cognizant of that. Does that somewhat answer your question, or did it make it more
Yes, sir,
muddy?
it does. It does.
Okay,
It does.
okay.
Sir, in that case, are we supposed to write in our limitations that it could have been explored in those directions as well, but due to our limitations, we could only resort to
In
our
qualitative,
certain boundaries?
yes, excellent point. Because in qualitative research, you talk about researcher reflexivity. And it is outside the scope of this to talk about it. It is what is happening to you as a researcher. What assumptions did you make before you started to research? Were those assumptions correct? Did it lead you in a different direction? All of those things the reader wants to understand that. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So you make a good point, Priya. I like that. Okay. That you have to be able to state that this is what you wanted to actually, for instance, you might say that I wanted to interview the 5 leading prime ministers of the world. Had I had a chance to do that, but I knew that I would probably not be able to do that. But to make that explicit in your research is a very good thing. Okay. So
yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Arhama wanted to say something. Arhama,
yeah,
please go ahead.
Arama, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Arama.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have this question with regards to ethics in conducting research. Sir, at times it happens that there are certain communities which are through which it is difficult to get participants from, like the transgender community. So at times it happens that the researchers have to pay a certain amount to these people in order to interview them. So in this regard, would it be considered unethical to do this, sir?
Okay, excellent question. Excellent question. And by the way, I've just gotten done guiding and coaching a doctoral student who was doing her research in Pakistan, Peshawar, on the transgender community, transgender individuals, entrepreneurial motivation. Now, to the best of my knowledge, unless she did not disclose that to me, the best of my knowledge, she did not pay anybody. And she has come out with some really brilliant interviews with these people. They could not, of course, because of the pandemic, she couldn't meet them face to face, but they were open to talking on the phone and through the internet. In some cases, if you absolutely must interview certain participants and they are not willing to come forward for the research, unless, they might not openly say, but they need some inducement. They need some incentivizing. You might say, okay, so I'll pay you $100 or $200 or whatever, 500 for every interview. Then you have to explicitly state that in your informed consent form. In the ethics and compliance clearance, you have to explicitly state that a token amount of which cannot be like 5 lakhs to each person, 5,000 to each person, 10,000 to each, a token amount of this much. And usually a nice way to put it is I will be offering participants a gift card, right? A store gift card, let's say to the Sears or whatever store, right? Gift card. Don't say cash. Usually cash doesn't seem too good. So just say a gift card. I'll be offering a gift card as a way of my saying thanks. Don't say that because they asked for it. You see where I'm going with this? So you have to be careful how you balance this out. Okay. Does that answer your question, Arama?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very much.
So
Thank
it's
you
not
so
that
much.
you can never incentivize anybody, but if you know that you have to have participants from a certain community and the incentive can help you get them, then by all means. Okay. But make it explicit. Make it clear. All right. So we went there.
Mitakshara wanted to say something.
Okay, go ahead. On which slide? Or just
in general as well as the slide.
Okay,
so it's more of a statement than a question. So when we talk about data being collected and analyzed from certain people, we often see that some communities are more easily accessible while collecting data. And then there comes a trend where a lot of studies focus only on those communities. And for example, it's much easier to collect data. I'm just giving it like a hypothetical example, say from someone who's from a lower socioeconomic status than someone who's from a very high socioeconomic status, because the whole idea of permission or getting entry into the community, it's much easier. But then when every research focus in that direction, I also feel somewhere there is a kind of exploitation for our academic curiosity. So isn't there an ethical issue here?
Okay, so there are two parts to your question. The first part I understood. Second part you will have to clarify with me. But let me go with the first part. The first part you're saying is that certain communities are easier to get through to. Like for instance, laborers or workers, or they're easier to talk to. They're more informal. You can go and talk to them, and it's easy to enter that community. But more as you go through the higher stratas, and I hate to use the word strata of society because I don't like that expression at all. But let us say people that are more affluent, okay, better placed in society and organizational leaders. It is difficult to get time from them, to get an opportunity from them. Your question is around ethics. So I'm not quite following what you mean by ethics in that context. So can you explain that?
Sir, actually, the issue of ethics is not pertaining to one particular research in that area, but it's more about researchers as a whole then trying to focus on certain communities more because it's more easily accessible. For example, it's much.
Okay. So what you're saying is that they go for the low hanging fruit, right? Low hanging
Yes,
fruit,
sir.
meaning
Like,
easier access to these communities. So only do those communities, and to hell with everybody else. Let me get, because I'm not getting participants from other communities. I want to talk to
yes,
CEOs,
sir.
but the CEO won't talk to me. All right, they won't give me the time of day. It's
Yes,
how
sir.
you craft your informed consent form, the way you bring it out, and the way you present it oftentimes determines the 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 openness and acceptability of that party. All right. I'm not saying that always if you've done all your homework and created a really well-crafted informed consent form and you're recommended by somebody, that they will always be open to talking to you. There's always a little bit of hesitation. Oh my goodness, so is Mitakshara going to take my words out of context? Is she going to use my name out there that I said this about my organization? So those issues, yes, they have to do with ethics and also, but they have more to do with the confidentiality aspect. So that was your first part. Now, what is the second part of your question?
Um, like at least from the research that are going on around me or the ones that I have often come across, I feel that there is also kind of exploitation just for the academic or just to get a research done. Researchers would rather go to a more accessible community than work up the harder way, and that way the focus shifts away. For example, if we say if we have more literature on survivors than perpetrators of a crime, say, but isn't it exploitation that we want to do it on a certain way, so we just go for whatever is easier rather than trying to delve deeper when it
Look,
comes to accessibility?
this is your, my response to that would be, it's a very individual thing. It's your, what you can live with. Okay. You can never stop anybody from doing or not doing something. You can never stop somebody from being ethical or unethical. It's your own code of ethics. If you're a researcher and you want to follow your code of ethics, you don't want to plagiarize, you want to really do it the hard way, the rigorous way, without cutting corners, then more power to you. But if you're somebody who's scummy, who wants to just make up the research, then why even do that research? Pay 5-10 lakhs. I believe there are companies that actually will offer you a PhD sitting at home. Why even go through the one entire research? Ethics ka sawal hi nahi hai, because you go, if you have to be in flagrant violation of ethics, don't go all the way and flagrantly violate the whole ethics. Have somebody else write the entire dissertation for you. So I'm just making a frivolous comment here, but it's your own individual roadmap. Okay, it's your own guiding star, right? It's your own adherence to values, to ideals, to the correct way of doing something. Because after all, somebody is watching you, right? And guess that who that person is? Your observing ego. Something inside you is watching everything that you're doing. And yes, you can get a piece of paper. Yes, you can get 10,000 rupees more or 50,000 rupees more because you have a PhD. But you are going to have no standing in your own eyes. All right. And that to me is far more important than just getting some letters after my name. All right. So, so I just wanted to share with you about this. I don't know if this sort of answers your question a little bit or not. Mitakshara?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. No, it does. It does to some extent, and it's yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let me go.
So
Do not put the. Yeah. Go ahead.
there is
Go ahead.
Siddhant wanted to say something. Siddhant had raised his hand.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Siddhant.
Sorry, Anil. So I had to like just get off this. I think I missed a part of the lecture because of a power cut. So I'm not sure if this has been covered already, but like you can just like take your call on that. So I had two like related questions. So one is, until what point in the study can one alter their research questions or refine it based on new revelations during the study? Like if someone
Very
doesn't
good
foresee
question.
something coming up, but then you have to, now you decide to like alter it in the midway. So that's one question. And again, so like that ties to the second question is that, so like how narrow is enough narrow for a research question? Like, is there a testing strategy to test for if the question is good enough or narrow enough when
Okay.
we frame it? Yeah.
Okay, so that's an excellent question. Actually, two questions. So you have a two-part question. The first part is, can you midstream do a mid-course correction and recraft your research question or modify it or state it in a different way? Yes, you can. Research question is not set in stone. It's not burnt into the ground. A research question evolves. Okay, if it evolves too much and it becomes totally materially different than what you had, then there is a problem. But it can evolve and it should evolve. Okay, because you're fine-tuning the process. If you're finding in your literature, finding in your interviews that something is coming up, right, that you had not originally thought about, yes, by all means, you can craft the research question accordingly. But don't craft a research question based on data that you're collecting.
Right.
Be careful. That's
Correct.
that's unethical.
Right.
Because then that, no, well, I'm not sure if it's unethical to that point, but it is kind of like awkward. You collecting the data and something is coming out of the data, now you're changing your research question.
Right.
So based on a research question, you created a design, study design, you chose a methodology, you chose participants based on that. Now you have to go back to what are you trying to go back to the drawing board once again? So be careful. You can tweak a research question, okay, but not based on the data that you're collecting, because it sort of presumes that, oh, you've got the research question done. Now you're collecting the data. Now somewhere along the line, you suddenly feel, oh, I should have thought about this also. Now you're going back, unless you're collecting more interviews. Your research question should be tweaked based on other information that's coming to you, like through literature review, through your readings, because now everybody, I hope you see the difference. One is that you're going backfilling because you're getting the data and you're making the correction there. On the other hand, you're finding new information that's coming in. It's giving you new avenues to look at. It's giving you a new pathway to go in. So you look at your research question and say, okay, maybe I have just done the pilot study or 2 or 3 interviews. Through the prototype, I can make some corrections, right? So when you do the actual study design, you may make some corrections there. And then correspondingly, you also change your research question a little bit. But if it's radically different, then I don't know where you're going with this. All right?
Yes. Thank you.
And your second question was what?
So the second question was, is there a testing strategy for a question, for a research question? Like, are there questions that we can help?
It's a very positivist approach.
Okay.
Looking at is there a way I can test if it's a good research question or not? In qualitative research, we don't. It's all thoughts, feelings, perceptions, emotions, things of that nature. So you don't.
Also, at the onset, like when we are drafting the question, like in the beginning, like is there a way we can tell that how narrow is enough narrow for a question? Like because we don't want to be too broad or too narrow. So like, is there a way to answer that?
There is not one single way of doing that. Okay. It's your own judgment, it's your own discretion. It's when you're working with your committee, they might say it's too broad, too narrow, narrow it down, change this. They might, it's a very personal choice. Okay.
Okay.
So there's not one size fits all. Okay.
All right.
All right. Because broad and narrow are very relative terms. What is too broad for you may be narrow for me. What is too narrow for me may be too broad for you. Right.
Right.
So I was looking at, do not put the cart before the horse. What do I mean by that? I've seen people, they fall in love with the methodology. They read up a little bit about Heidegger, Husserl, and now they are going all gangbusters. Now I want to do phenomenology only. And now, Kushni, I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to do phenomenology. Or I want to do grounded theory because Glaser and Strauss were such wonderful theorists. Are you fall in love with something?
Sir,
you have to have a. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, sorry. Sir, I think I fall in love with my methodology because I really want to go my methodology in qualitative, and I really want to take interviews. So I do wrong thing.
No,
because I didn't know my
did
thesis.
you fall in love without seeing who the person was?
Sorry.
Did you fall in love with it without seeing what it was? In other words, did you design a research question before falling in love with the methodology?
No. Actually,
you fell in love with the methodology first, right? You said, I want to go there. I want to do interviews. I want to do this.
Yes.
But did you create a research question? But did you have a research question before that?
No, right
let's
now.
Be honest. Let's be honest. You did not, right?
Yes.
Okay. I can see the guilty look on your face. You did not have a research question first. You've already fallen in love with the So I appreciate your candor and your honesty. This is common. People falling in love with somebody without knowing who that person is.
Yes. And nowadays we are do that thing.
Yeah, too much of that is happening, right? So don't put the cart before the horse. The horse has to be before the cart, right? Cart has to follow the horse is pulling the cart. What is the horse? Your research question is guiding. Your research question is pulling this framework. So review the basic literature pertaining to the problem statement and area of research before developing a research. So we talked about why it's so important to understand some part of the research literature, to read up. Do not fall in love with the methodology or research design. Let them flow as a natural extension of the research question. Allow your research question to guide. I'm just said that, which is on the slide. So be very careful in doing that, because otherwise you may end up somewhere else in your research. Okay. And Ms. Bhai, we can talk about that via email or whatever. I can sort of help you understand that piece a little bit better. But just for the interest of this group, I think we can proceed. So example.
I really honored that thing.
What's that? What was that?
I said that so nice of you, sir. I said that.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, you're welcome. So examples of research question and grounded theory. Now I'm going to show you some examples of two critical theories, not critical as in the critical the theory of critical thinking. That's a different thing. Two important or popular methodologies and approaches, phenomenology and grounded theory. Okay, so I'm going to show you examples of research questions in grounded theory. If everybody understands what grounded theory is a framework, is a methodology for creating a new theory where one does not exist, or refining an existing theory. It's a very long and iterative process. So grounded theory is not for everybody. I mean, novices have to be careful before they go into grounded theory because it's a very complex type of approach. In most studies, the research question directs how the study proceeds. We were just been talking about how you have to have a research question first. From that, your study design develops. From that, methodology develops, etc., right? Which is what we said, right? Correct? When you're doing grounded theory, your literature review and methodology and everything comes last. It doesn't come first. In grounded theory, it is the research process that generates the research question. So as you do the iterative process of research, your question is developing out of that. So you don't start with the research question. You don't start with the literature review. You don't start with the references, with your bibliography. It is all emerging out of that. A key characteristic in traditional grounded theory research is that the researcher enters the field without narrow research questions or hypotheses that are common in other designs. And Glaser has consistently referred to this concept of emergence. So grounded theory is about emergence. Something new is emerging. Okay. All right. So just remember that. All right. This is an example of how grounded theory is a bit more complex, different from some of the other methodologies that you may have come across. So let me go to the next slide and actually show you a couple of, or two or three examples of research questions in grounded theory. Number one, how do asylum seekers adapt to emancipation in their adopted country following internship? What influences managers in private institutions to seek professional advancement? How do women in developing countries establish financial independence? Correct? Now, if you notice the common thread that is running through all these questions in grounded theory is causality. Did everyone get that? Causality. One thing causes another. How do asylum seekers adapt to emancipation in their adoption? So what is it that happens that they need to adopt this? Or number two, what influences? So we are looking for factors. When you're seeking factors or influences or causes for one thing leading to another, you're going in the direction of grounded theory. How do women in developing countries establish financial independence? How? Right? So what is the process that occurs? There is a theoretical framework that's going on here. And you want to understand the framework? Either there's something new that you're trying to capture, or you're trying to refine something that is already existing. So as you do this, as you go into the research, you start to look at the literature, you say, hey, you know, this has already been done, but there are so many gaps that are open there. This has not been explained thoroughly. So let me give it a shot on how to go about doing this. So these are just some quick examples of research questions. And so Siddharth, has Siddhant raised his hand, or?
Yes, yes, Anand.
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
So on this slide itself, so that means these examples of research questions would have been developed towards the end of the, or like not really at the beginning of the study, right? So
Yes.
what would the beginning of the study look like for like any of these?
Okay. So that's a great question. So without getting into, because we don't have the time to get into the grounded theory discussion, but I just wanted to share with you that grounded theory, you start with some kind of a hypothesis. All right.
Okay.
You have to start with something, right?
Right.
You say that this is something that has been intriguing me, this theory, but I'm not satisfied with it. I feel there is other work that needs to get done in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take it upon myself to do that. Now, am I going to go in moving into the darkness? I need some light. I need some direction, right? So I start with as a novice into that area.
Mm-hmm.
I read up a little bit into that area, but not read up so much that it already influences my mind.
Okay.
It already colors my perception of that. You read up enough
Mm-hmm.
to pique your curiosity so that you're going into something, not into the darkness, but into a little bit of light. And then you're through your own work, you're throwing more light. So these questions are through a process of iteration. There's a very iterative process of going back and forth in grounded theory. Okay. And so when you're looking at these questions, this is not a question that you developed first and then you started doing the research.
Right.
These questions are developing as you're interviewing, as you're collecting data.
Right.
Okay, because why? At the end of the day, you have to be able to stand on your own feet. Because if you are claiming that you've created a new theory, it's going to be attributed to you for posterity. If, in fact, nobody else has already done the theory, or nobody else has already done the work in that theory. And it can happen. One of you can become another Einstein. One of you can become another Newton. More often than not, though, novice researchers are into the process of developing or refining an existing theory, not creating a brand new theory. Right? So I hope it answers your question, that this is a very transient, very emergent process.
Right. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So examples of research questions in phenomenology and IPS. So I'm going to go really quick and we will end it up hopefully in time. Oh, we have already passed that. Okay, so I have to rush through this. Let's look at some sample research questions. And I've been talking about employee engagement a lot, right? Because employee engagement is a big thing in organizations. What can organizations do to engage the minds, the psyche, the emotions, the psychology of employees? Because a more engaged employee is a more productive employee, typically speaking, right? They're healthier. Their emotional health is good. Their relationships within the company is good, and the work of the company is smoother. Customers are happy. So there are a lot of different factors. So what does engagement mean to employees? It's a very broad sample research question. It's a phenomenological research question, by the way. What does engagement mean? But when I'm asking that question, I'm asking that question broadly speaking. What does engagement mean? So anybody that I ask a question, what does engagement mean to you? Anybody can answer. Whether you are an employee in an organization or working for yourself, engagement is something that you can reflect on. Just as you can reflect on joy, you can reflect on happiness, you can reflect on sorrow, you can reflect on abuse. Everybody can reflect on, but it's an indirect question. So focus on employee engagement as an indirect employee experience. So we are looking at an indirect experience. Research phenomena is employee engagement, as you can see, right? Approach is phenomenology, which is transcendental phenomenology, which is attributed to Husserl. Or you can have descriptive phenomenology, right? And you can read up on that a little bit, or you can go to many of my lectures and presentations on YouTube. I have many out there that you can read up and listen to. And so what you're really doing is you are investigating the thatness of experience, as though that experience is not your own experience, it belongs to somebody else, but you're throwing light on that. For instance, you may or may not be part of the LGBTQ community, but you can say something about the LGBT community without having been a member of that community, correct? So you're looking at an indirect experience. Now let's change that question. I wanted to share with you how a research question crafted differently can bring about a different research design and a different methodology. So what is it like for employees to experience engagement in a virtual team? Remember, I was talking about that earlier in the context of virtuality. So the moment I say, what is it like for employees to experience engagement in a virtual team? I am obviously looking for participants who are part of a virtual team in an organization, right? So my focus is on personal meaning of engagement, your lived experience of an employee who's actually working for a virtual organization. I'm not just looking and talking to somebody, a participants, and asking them what does virtuality mean to an employee. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a direct lived experience. So whatness of experience is very direct and ontological. So see, by changing the research question, how the design changes. I'm using IPA here, interpretative phenomenological analysis, which is an approach to analysis using phenomenological inquiry. And if you go into this matrix, which I don't have the time to go through because it's past the boundary for you all. I don't want to keep you all longer. But if you change the research questions, this is about emotional abuse or physical abuse, abuse as an experience. These are examples of research questions. The moment I change the research question and craft it differently, I'm looking at a different research design, different methodology. If you notice, this is phenomenology, interpretative phenomenological analysis, narrative psychology, grounded theory, discursive psychology. All right. So it changes the entire. So the same research question can be crafted differently, but it changes the entire meaning, changes the entire context, changes the design, changes the methodology of doing it. All right. So please keep that in mind, that your research phenomena could remain the same, but how you go about researching that phenomena can become different. Okay. And that was the end of my presentation. And these are the references to this. And anybody who would like a copy of the presentation, the PowerPoint, you can certainly reach out to me individually, and I'll be happy to share that with you. I'm sorry this took longer, but it had to be an interactive session. There's no point in me sharing 25 slides and everybody's nodding their head. Okay, hopefully this has stirred up some curiosity in you. Hopefully this has helped you answer some questions. And this is a journey. It is a journey. It is not something that we finish up right in one sitting. Right? It's a whole process of that. But if nothing else, hopefully you've seen that the process of defining something and describing something such as a research question is a longer process than you must have imagined. You have to go through these steps to create that. Hopefully, if nothing else, I've left you with that notion that it was a great mistake. So I want to thank you all for your participation and your attendance to this. And I want to especially thank our young lady, Namrata Chatterjee, for artfully moderating the session. So thank you, Namrata, for your participation and also for helping us go through this entire session. This session is being recorded, and we will be sharing that on our public YouTube channel for people that want to go through that. But again, just remember that there's a lot more involved, which I cannot obviously cover in just 2 hours. So even though we've gone over the boundary, 15 minutes over, so thank you so much for your patience. And I look forward to seeing everybody. Please be safe and keep your learning up. All right. Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.